Good evening and welcome to the Newshour Agenda. I'm Madhavdas Gk. The showdown over Agnipath Scheme refuses to die down. Amidst repeated demands by the opposition parties to scrap the scheme, Prime Minister Modi has now mounted a strong defense in favor of the scheme. Speaking in Ladakh's Drass on occasion of the 25th anniversary of Kargil Vijay Divas, PM Modi said that Agnipath Scheme is aimed at keeping the armed forces continuously ready for war. The Prime Minister has also slammed opposition parties for playing politics over national security and asserted that his government took the decision to honor the proposal by the armed forces. In a direct message to the opposition parties, the PM stressed that BJP government keeps the nation above politics.
मेरे लिए दल नहीं, देश सर्वोपरि है। और साथियों, मैं आज गर्व से कहना चाहता हूं, सेनाओं द्वारा लिए गए इस फैसले का हमने सम्मान किया है। और जैसा मैंने पहले कहा, हम राजनीति के लिए नहीं, राष्ट्र नीति के लिए काम करते हैं। हमारे लिए राष्ट्र की सुरक्षा सर्वोपरि है। कुछ लोगों की समझ को क्या हुआ है, ऐसा भ्रम फैला रहे हैं कि सरकार पेंशन के पैसे बचाने के लिए ये योजना लेकर आई है। आज मोदी के शासनकाल में जो भर्ती होगा, क्या आज ही उसको पेंशन देना है क्या? उसको पेंशन देने की नौबत 30 साल के बाद आएगी और तब तो मोदी 105 साल का हुआ होगा।
Opposition, however, stuck to its guns, with both Congress and the Samajwadi Party demanding the scrapping of this scheme. In a detailed post on social media, Congress chief Kargil has accused Prime Minister of spreading lies and insulting the forces. Kargil said that Prime Minister's claim that the Agnipath scheme was implemented at the army's behest was a blatant lie and alleged was rather forcibly implemented by the government.
Now, when you create a situation where soldiers can be trained for 6 months and then serve for 3 or 4 years, what you're doing but diluting the quality of training and professional opportunities available to the Indian Army. I believe it's deeply damaging. The only rationale for it is indeed to save money on the pension.
अग्निवीर व्यवस्था को समाजवादी पार्टी कभी स्वीकार नहीं कर सकती है। और जब कभी मैं नौजवानों से मिलता हूं, खासकर जो तैयारी कर रहे हैं नौजवान, उनसे मैं मिलता हूं, और आम लोगों में ये बात है कि ये अग्निवीर व्यवस्था खराब है, हमारे देश की सुरक्षा से समझौता है और बजट की वजह से ये समझौता नहीं हो सकता।
इस पे बहुत बार कहा जा चुका है, ये बहुत ही खतरनाक योजना है। ये योजना जो है कुछ हद तक कुछ लोगों को लॉलीपॉप देने वाली योजना है। बहुत बढ़िया होगा या तो राहुल गांधी, जिन्होंने भारत न्याय जोड़ो यात्रा या संपूर्ण क्रांति यात्रा जिन्होंने किया है, उनको आप सामने लेकर आए, उनके लोगों को सामने लेकर आए। इस पर उन्होंने बहुत बार बातें की हैं और उनकी बातों में बहुत दम है, बहुत सच्चाई है।
The BJP has rebutted Kargil's claim, with the BJP asserting that all 3 service chiefs agreed to the scheme and that there were no views to the contrary. Meanwhile, hours after the Prime Minister's Agnipath defense, ITBP DG Madhavdas G has said that the force is ready to induct ex-Agniveers and will provide them age relaxation and exemption from physical efficiency test. UP CM Yogi Adityanath has also announced that the state will provide ex-Agniveers the facility of adjustment in police service and PSC on a priority basis. The BJP has slammed politics over the Agnipath scheme and reiterated PM's message that nation is above party and politics.
कि हम देश के साथ, वोट के साथ, किसी के साथ राजनीति नहीं करते। देश सिर्फ हमारे साथ। दुनिया के सारे रिपोर्ट्स ने और भारत के सारे रिपोर्ट्स ने कहा कि भारत की फौज और जवान होनी चाहिए, यंग फौज, और अग्निवीर उसी लक्ष्य को पूर्ति करने का।
दुर्भाग्य है कि कुछ राजनीतिक दल, जिनके लिए स्वयं की राजनीति देश से बड़ी हो गई है, विपक्ष ने लगातार गुमराह करने का प्रयास किया। अग्निवीर में जहां युवा भर्ती हो रहे हैं, एक ट्रेंड युवा, तो हम उत्तर प्रदेश पुलिस सेवा में पीएसी में इन नौजवानों को प्राथमिकता के आधार पर समायोजन की एक सुविधा देंगे, वेटेज देंगे।
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 1 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
And for more on this, let's go right across to our guest. Joining us is Aparajita Sarangi, Member of Parliament and National Spokesperson of the BJP. We're also joined at the moment by Professor Madhav Nalapat, geopolitics expert. Kamruzaman Chaudhary, political analyst, is joining us. We're also joined by Major General Bishambar Dayal, retired defense expert, who's with us on the show. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us this evening. Let me start first and foremost with Kamruzaman Chaudhary. Kamruzaman Chaudhary, very clearly the Prime Minister has spelled out that this is a scheme which is to make the army constantly battle ready. Clearly the implication is that it's unfortunate that the opposition is politicizing such a scheme. What is your response?
Within 6 months of training, I believe nobody in this world will be able to be battle ready for an army as large as the Indian army, and with enemies like Pakistan on one side, China on the other, and internal disturbances. But that's a foolish thing which caters only to the domestic audience. But my surprising thing and thought tonight is how the country's Prime Minister, on a solemn occasion like the Kargil Vijay Divas, chose to attack the Congress party on the Agnipath scheme. It is not the Congress party that is opposing the Agnipath scheme. It is the voice of the people, the youth of this country who are opposed to this Agnipath scheme. And as a responsible opposition, the Congress party is bringing out the voices of these people to the public domain and into the ears of a deaf government like Narendra Modi's government out here. If Agnipath scheme was a scheme to fill the vacancies of the Indian army, then I believe Indian army won't be able to maintain the second or third largest army in the world.
Right.
And such a powerful, we won the 1971 war. We have won the Bangladesh war, we have won the Kargil war, we have won number of wars with Pakistan.
Okay.
We have handled such, and we are proud as a nation of our Indian army.
Okay.
Why are you diluting the importance of the Indian army by bringing in a scheme like Agniveer? Agniveer, I am not opposed to the people joining to the army through the Agniveer scheme. Basic point here is that, Madhav, you must understand, a person with 6 years training gets into the Indian army, gets to defend our border, knows a lot of secrets about the Indian army, comes out.
We'll go one by one. We'll go one by one into the merits and demerits of the scheme. Let's first, prima facie, I want Aparajita Sarangi to come in on, why is the Prime Minister politicizing, this particular event, a solemn occasion such as Kargil Vijay Divas. That is the primary, objection that has come in. This is something that even Mallikarjun Kharge, the Congress president and leader of opposition in Rajya Sabha, has raised. Aparajita Sarangi.
This is our allegation against the opposition parties. Matters pertaining to national security need not be politicized. In fact, the opposition parties are behaving in a manner which smacks of immaturity and insensitivity. See, this particular scheme, the Agnipath scheme, was formulated and actually grounded in June 2022 with a very good intention. The idea was to, as you said, was to make the army battle ready, and we needed to have army soldiers with average age of 26 years. Right now, the average age of army soldiers in India is 32 years. When we compare this with what it is there in other countries, I think we are very far ahead. So I think the intention is to make our soldiers battle ready. One. Number two, the youth must be inducted into the army so that for 4 years they live in a disciplined manner, they serve the nation, they inculcate the values of nationalism, and then they go out with good package of 11,71,000, and every month they would be earning 30 to 40,000. Right now there are more than 1 lakh Agniveers in the country, of which 200 are women. So I think this is a scheme which has been formulated with the best of intentions, and the opposition should desist from indulging in this kind of politics. But at the same time, I would like to mention here that this scheme is not the kind of scheme that has been brought out alone in India. The same kind of scheme is in America, Britain, Russia, China, Israel, South Korea, Switzerland, Brazil, Georgia, and Lithuania. The intention is to bring down the age of the army soldiers.
Yes.
To make our army young. You know, that's the noble intention, and I think all of us must congratulate Prime Minister Modi's government for having formulated this.
Okay.
And let me tell you, just give me 30 seconds.
Quickly conclude your
Never
point.
did we say that we would not tweak with the scheme. You know, as we go, if we find any fault, if we find there are rooms for improvement, we would improve, and none other than the Defense Minister of the country, Sri Rajnath Singh, has mentioned that we would be bringing about changes in the scheme if need be.
Let me bring in now Major General Bishambar Dayal. Major General Bishambar Dayal, it's not the first country in the world to implement it. There are genuine concerns about the rising age of our armed forces, and therefore it is with the best of intentions that this scheme has been brought in, says the government. How do you respond to them?
The genuine concern to reduce the age of the army is, I think, a fallacy. It's just a cover-up. Let's not abuse soldiers, those who conquered Kargil heights. Let's not abuse those who conquered the Galwan Valley, those who told the enemy on this pious day, let's salute them. Those who told them, you trespass India, you'll be executed. So, please, army has always been battle ready. At a short notice, we moved to counter in 62 China. At a drop of a pin in 1947, we landed in J&K to see that that our territory is safe. We are making now excuses, my dear. There is army is young. It does not require. If you want to make the army young, please don't create a misnomer in the world. There are JCOs, there are NCOs who will still be at that age fighting, and they've been fighting. Today they are young. Please, firstly, that's a misnomer. Secondly, we must understand that a Delhi police guy is trained 9 months to be in Delhi police, Haryana police, Bihar police, UP police, BSF, CRPF. Where did you come with this figure of six months? You do not transform a civilian boy who was living in a rural India, in a school, into a soldier within 6 months. It's not about physical training, weapon training. It is transformation of mind. Training and transformation of mind. It takes 4 to 6 years to embed him into the regimental ethos of Naam Namak Nishan, fighting soldier, that body, that system where you fight for each other, where in the battle you see only my colleague is there, I have to move ahead. Please, it takes 4 to 6 years. You excel at a 6-7 years of age. So please, this is a complete misnomer. And we are comparing with which countries? Some of the countries have, no country in the world have 2 live borders. No country has 3,500 kilometers of border all the time under threat of the enemy. This is the only country. Our security challenges are increasing by day. We need an army. Do not disturb the most potent weapon of the Indian army, and that is its soldier. Please, if you want to bring the reduced age, no reforms are required. Bring the age of officer young. Let the NDA intake be at after 10th class. Do that. Let the div commander, brigade commander be at 35, 40 years. Let the corps commander be at 45, 60 years. Let the JCOs be at 32 years. Those are the issues. People are misquoting Subramaniam committee report. People are misquoting the report of the group of ministers which was under Arun Singh. They recommended totally something different. They are painting different. Prime Minister is not at fault. Please, he's our Prime Minister. What a statement. I'm not condemning. I'm saying those advisors who have brought this type of a scheme, they are trying to defend themselves without realizing that it is not at a critical time. It will degrade the fighting capability of the armed forces. It is also detrimental to the social setup from the point of view. We have rural India. Soldiers come from rural India. And if the passion dies there, it is unstable. 4 years is an unstable profession. Nobody takes you today when Jawan leaves at 35, 34 years.
We'll get into the specifics of the tenure, but I want to bring in Professor Madhav Nalapat about the intention. Because here you have Major General Bishambar Dayal, and he says that, those who have advised the government have perhaps been a little short on what the reality on ground is. How would you respond to him, Professor Nalapat?
Well, Madhav, first of all, I would like to say that yes, pensions will be paid out only after 30 years. And yes, it's a fact that you have got 2.4 retired soldiers per serving soldier, whereas civilians is 1:1. It's a fact that pensions are very rapidly reaching the same level of expenditure as salaries. And there's no question that that is unsustainable. Yes, Major General is absolutely right. We need to do a lot for our soldiers, and we need to find the money to do that. Let's say, for example, you promise a government job to every youth. I've heard that on the campaign trail in India in the last election. How do you do that? I mean, all jobs will be government jobs. That is the philosophy why the public sector was allowed to dominate so long, and why, frankly, the country had a very low rate of growth, 2.4, 2.3. Only after Narasimha Rao liberalized to some extent was that rate of growth expanded. So the first point is national service. Countries that are highly at risk, like Israel, like Taiwan, South Korea, you name them, they are having compulsory service. Agnipath Scheme is not compulsory. Young people can volunteer. At the same time, 25% of them will finally, at the end of 4 years, the best of them will join the armed forces and fulfill the need that our distinguished military expert, and I salute his service, is talking about. So that is the first point, that you're going to have that. And second point is, 4 years of military training is not a waste. Already the Central Police have said that they are going to put 10%. I'm sure other organizations will come forward, including private organizations.
Today the UP government has said they're going to give a quota as well.
NCC, Madhav, and NCC was fantastic training, and it was compulsory during my time in college. You had to do it, and it was an amazing experience to go for that discipline. So, frankly, 4 years after that discipline, the young man is perfectly capable of finding his own way in the system in a way he may not be now.
Right. Let me quickly bring in our panelists. Quick comments, please, because there is a limited time in this debate. I want to ask a simple question to Kamruzaman Chaudhary. Kamruzaman Chaudhary, you've heard Rahul Gandhi come out and say that this is a use and throw scheme, that the martyr gets nothing, all sorts of criticisms coming in from Mr. Rahul Gandhi. The government has said that those are not factually correct statements. They've put out various documents that show about the kind of money that goes to the martyrs. In fact, there are some leaders within the Congress itself, Manish Tiwari, who's come out and actually supported the Agnipath scheme, although Mr. Jairam Ramesh has distanced from those comments. So it's not really clear in terms of the Congress party. While they have officially opposed it, there are, of course, kind of flaws in the arguments that have been pointed out by the BJP and from within the Congress itself in the past. Kamruzaman.
There will always be a pros and cons about any decision that any government takes in India. There is no doubt about that, Madhav. But let me cite you two examples. How the Narendra Modi government is doing a harakiri with our policy-making decisions out here. When they brought in the Agnipath scheme, the army chief at that time, General M.M. Naravane, he never knew that such a scheme was being introduced. Who is the biggest stakeholder in that Agnipath scheme is the Indian Army. And the Indian Army's chief does not know that the government is introducing a scheme. Let me take you just back to 2016. The RBI governor did not know that a Notbandi scheme was being introduced by the government, the government of India. That is not.
Let's get a response to the BJP. Madhavdas Sarangi, in demonetization, RBI governor didn't know. When this important policy change was being brought in, the army chief didn't know. Very serious charges coming from Kamruzaman Chaudhary. Ms. Sarangi.
Now, let me tell you, I have been associated with the government for 24 years. I was in the Indian Administrative Service, and I can only tell you that these kinds of schemes, when formulated, take into consideration the recommendations of various experts, various expert committees, and various stakeholders. So in this particular case also, Subramaniam Committee after the Kargil War had given certain recommendations, and the major recommendation was that the average age of army soldiers should be brought down from 32 to 26 years, and this is the case in US and this is the case in many of the other countries. So I think we need to go to the Kargil Review Committee report of 2000 also, the Shekatkar Committee report of 2017. So when the Ministry of Defence formulates a scheme and goes to the Cabinet or goes to the Parliament for approval, it is backed by a lot of homework. It just cannot go like that.
All right.
So I think it is far from the truth when our dear friend says that nobody has been consulted. It never happens like that.
Okay.
You know, it has huge ramifications. And the government is very mature. It knows the implications. So I'm sure all
Major
the stakeholders...
Major General Dayal, the implications are known. Such policy schemes cannot be brought in without, consulting all stakeholders, particularly those responsible. Quick response, please.
No. I will tell you, look, we are misquoting the Subramaniam Committee report. It wanted the age to be lowered down of the commanding officers and certain issues. He did not say remove the soldiers' age. He did not comment. I have gone through the report. I was a serving officer that time in Moscow. And secondly, the group of ministers also recommended certain changes which have been implemented. Please, nobody said that come out with an ad hoc scheme like that. We are trying to compare our army with armies which did not even have any threat. So that is where the perception is. Second issue is, which is more important issue is, please, did somebody carry out a study? Did the army commanders? If the government can say that the army commanders of 2022 in October Army Commanders Conference 2021, this was debated, it came from the army, they debated, they recommended it. Believe you me, I would not speak even a word, but nothing like that happened. Okay. Army never discussed it, and today we are just trying to say, and if you politicize it, if you bring the Prime Minister in, nobody is going to listen, the scheme is going to stay.
Let me now bring in Professor Nalapat. Professor Nalapat, there's a lot of debate, whether there were consultations, no consultations, so on and so forth, but the fact is this has become an extremely sensitive issue politically. You have the JDU, which is a key ally of this government, which has repeatedly made its stand clear. There are other issues on which allies have differed. But, all of this has raised serious questions in terms of the implementation of the scheme and whether, there could have been more consultation, whether all of the stakeholders should have been spoken to, political parties, allies, etc., taken into confidence before its rollout.
Madhav, frankly, I'd like to point out that what our distinguished military man was saying, basically he's implying that promotions depend on the calendar. Now, that should not be the case. Promotions should not depend on the calendar, number one. And number two, whether civilians, whether it's the IAS, IFS, and IPS, or it is the military, both. It's not a question of promotion by the calendar, as the case now. It's got to be a case of promotion by achievement and merit. Secondly, may I point out that in today's war, it is not just the army that counts. In many wars, it's going to be a navy. It's going to be the Air Force. It's going to be a combination of all three of them in the form of commandos. And now you have this Chief of Defense Staff scheme. You have tri-service commands, and an effort is being made to integrate all that. These are essential reforms. To say that no reforms are needed, everything is perfect, quite frankly, the fact is we are facing a very extreme threat. And we're not alone in this. Other countries are facing this threat, and we have to ensure that reforms do get carried out. And yes, of course, there's space for improving them, but you cannot depend on the calendar for promotions. And
Professor Nalapat, Aparajita Sarangi, Major General Bishambar Dayal, and Kamruzaman Chaudhary. I'd like to thank all of you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us this evening. Certainly a very, very important debate, a very, very heated issue as well. There have been all sorts of reactions that have been coming in for and against. In fact, several of our soldiers for, several against, that have been speaking out on this. But certainly, of course, the end of the day, whether politics needs to be played out about issues of national security, about our armed forces, certainly is a question that has been raised as well. We'll have to leave it there for the moment. Thanks so much for joining us.